Hi, good to see you. I can't see you. Anyway, welcome back to my channel, Heart Connected Communication. And I hope you've been following all the videos. I'm really excited to be sharing this. And today, in this video, we're going to be looking at the distinction between observations and evaluations, which seems like, oh, duh, that's so obvious. And yet, it is amazing how much that gets blurred, how much the habits that we have of evaluation, interpretations, blaming, making meaning of things. So, this is one of the most important aspects of learning to bring awareness to yourself and to get some more understanding and awareness of other people's perspectives and experiences. Boy, could we use that right now. So it's going to be fun. Come on in. Let's get to the heart of it. All right. So the difference between observation and evaluation. It's part of the four parts that make up the form of nonviolent communication. So you can see that the form is got four parts: observations, feelings, needs, and requests. And we've talked before about needs and strategies being on a continuum and the helpful piece of getting the distinction between those. We talked a little bit about feelings and thoughts, and you can see those two videos on needs and on feelings, and I'll put the link. And now we're looking at really the first part of the four parts is the observations and evaluations. And what I want to hone in on is these are all pieces that can help with self-connection and connection to others. It's a practice of inner awareness to cultivate choice. And when we are in this place of evaluation, it is a lot harder to distinguish between what really is happening, what we see, hear, smell, taste, all of those pieces, and what's happening inside of us, and to what is actually our thoughts are. And our brains, remember, make a lot of thoughts, love to think. We have a lot of quick thoughts. That is the way that we're kind of wired to quickly generalize. Our brains are always predicting on past experiences to keep us alive. And so we go to what's wrong, we evaluate. So this is moving on this continuum. And you don't have to think of this as, oh, all these parts over here are wrong and these are all the right things. It's just, where am I on this continuum? Am I really in some thought loops? Are they true? But also, what really did happen? What is it that I'm stimulated by that might be supporting needs of mine and others? Or what is it that happened that may not be meeting my needs or the needs of others? So I want to know where I am on this continuum. Same with my feelings and my thoughts. These are our habits. And then we're looking at some of these new habits over here on the observations, feelings, needs, and requests, because then I can get to the heart of issues. There's one thing in the way that humans are wired is to really value our thoughts. It's something that sort of sets us apart from other mammals, possibly. And we kind of have this stronger value on thoughts and evaluations. And it can be really helpful. We need those. So we want to just change our discernment to, instead of right and wrong and a very strong binary, we want to be able to pull out the judgments and evaluations from those actual observations. And then from there, I can have more of a discernment of a needs-based discernment rather than a moralistic right-wrong discernment, because things aren't always as they seem. So this is really helpful to understand that observations can be external observations or internal, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But for right now, I would like to start with a little bit of story, and I have another video to show you. Okay, so the story I want to share. So there was a man who had Alzheimer's, and it was at a home assisted living place. And he was hearing this music. The staff were bringing in some music and playing it from times when he was younger. And they saw tears in his eyes. And they were saying to each other, oh, look at that. It's so touching. He's touched by this music. Oh, we'll have to play this music more. Look, he's so happy. And he's appreciating what we're doing. And so his son comes in for a visit, and they're listening to the music, and they're telling him the story about, oh, how much he's been enjoying it. He's got tears in his eyes. And his son says, oh, wow, actually, he loves heavy metal. He hates this music. He's crying because he can't stand this music, and all he wants to listen to is Metallica. So they decided to put on Metallica. He was happy, and he began to smile again. So I love that story because it shows how much, how quickly we're hooked into our assumptions being real. And I love the bumper sticker that says you don't have to believe all your thoughts, and that is really the case with this. Why do we look at the difference between evaluations, and observations? So what can it help us with? Well, sometimes it's helpful to look at where we're coming from. So culture comes from our behaviors. Behaviors kind of comes from how we are biologically. So as I said before, our brains have really been meant to find what's wrong and find a quick right and wrong and generalize things. So thankfully, we have enough of a brain to also put ourselves in a bigger perspective. So it's helping us get a bigger perspective when we get our observations and our evaluations separated and understanding them. It can be really helpful to get an idea of what the actual stimulus is. What is it that was said or done, or what were we noticing within ourselves that we felt or were thinking when something in particular happened? And that will help us to hone in on then our feelings and our needs. So our habits are that we confuse interpretations with observations. That's pretty typical. And we assume that evaluations are facts. And if you think about our language, it's filled with adverbs and descriptive words, and they tend to be more negative if you look at the total number. Even our feeling words, there's far more feelings for the feelings when our needs are not met than when our needs are met, if you look at the feelings list. So you can start to become aware of interpretations as distinct from observations. When you're reviewing, you can do that in hindsight. And then you can begin to do that in real time, kind of know that I'm thinking and that I might be hooked by my thoughts. And then we begin to remember a little bit more about the distinctions, get clear on our observations, maybe take more responsibility for our observations and our feelings and our needs. So that can be really helpful. You also might be able to translate other people's judgments and evaluations into what you might guess their feelings and needs are, what it might be connected to that was said or done. And then we move to being able to more easily distinguish between them and sort of get out of that right wrong paradigm and really hold, is this life serving? That's our ways of discerning. Is this life serving? Our needs being met? Are there ways to make more needs met? So one thing I thought that was really supportive to learn is that judgments are tragic expression of needs. So when there are judgments, the bigger they are, or the more tragic I'm acting or another person is acting in a way, it's the more needs that are not being met, it means there's more sense of urgency to have needs met. So there's always needs underneath that. So we can translate judgments into needs and move along that continuum to more of an observation. And to me, observations are also a pause. It's a place to stop and notice. So how about we do a little practice? So I have a little skit I want to do, and I want you to see if you can see what observations you have rather than your evaluations. So I'm going to go ahead and get that skit here up. And what are you doing? I'm in the middle of recording. I told you I was here. I'm about to do the skit, and now I've got to stop it. I'm going to have to edit this out. I asked that you wait. Okay, where's the skit now? Jeez, I lost my place. Okay, that was my skit. Maybe you could tell with my not so transparent acting, or I could say my judgment of my bad acting. I hope you can see from my little skit trick that it's not so easy to discern observations and evaluations. And so that alone is a skill that can be super helpful. I say super helpful a lot. Who knows that? In any case, what were the evaluations that you made? What were the observations that you made? Maybe you can put them in the chat. A lot of times when I'm in person, I do something like that where I ask, what did you observe? And so you might say you observed I was angry. You might observe that I was yelling at someone, all kinds of things. And is that an evaluation or an observation? So I'd love to hear some of what your observations are. Maybe you noticed my eyes weren't facing the camera and I had a little bit of my body turned. That might be more of an observation. You might say that my volume went up. As far as you could tell, you heard a difference in my tone, or that might be an observation. But if I might say, oh, you were angry or you were upset or you were unprofessional or you made a mistake, all those would be evaluations. So Marshall Rosenberg also has a number of examples in his book, Nonviolent Communication, The Language of Life. And you can also, there's tons of opportunities to translate judgments and evaluations into observations in your world. So that's another practice you can do. I love translating bumper stickers or things I'm thinking that are an immediate judgment of myself or of others. And I might try to put those into words, something like, I didn't enjoy, or it was less than I enjoyed or more than I enjoyed. Something like that, where it's more centered on my experience. I want to share one other practice before I show a video also, is that you can put your hand on your head. It's a great way to practice. What am I thinking? When I'm thinking that, what am I feeling? And then hand on your gut, sort of, what am I needing? What's important to me? What's at the core? That's something that can help. And then open hands for what are some requests to myself or others to meet some of those needs, or do I want to open my hands sort of in gratitude of the needs that are met? But I would do that as I was practicing driving down the road. What am I thinking? Just to be able to stop and pause. You can also practice all kinds of meditations and things where you're just observing and being with that observation. And I want to kind of, a note of caution is that often when people are first learning nonviolent communication, they get kind of stuck on that part of whether an observation is right or wrong. And we kind of bring in our paradigm of right, wrong, what we've been living in and the way that our brains are. And it's something that to be mindful of, that often observations are explained as anything that a camera might see or anything a cat or dog might see without interpretation. And yet, obviously, we all have interpretations. We all are bringing our experiences with us. And we have a very blame culture of blaming the person speaking or blaming the victim. And so sometimes NVC can be used violently without that intention to connect. And so I just want to be mindful of that, but I also want to show a video.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
So I love that. It's easy to miss something we're not looking for. So it just keeps us more alert and more aware, which can help us in all kinds of situations, especially when tensions are high or conflict is there, or there's really big issues, impact is happening, things are at stake. Be really helpful. Not get stuck on observations either, but just understanding and knowing the difference. And a lot of relying on internal observations too. What are the feelings, the body sensations, what needs are there?
This is the Shogun. I'm going to hide this Hershey's Kiss under this cup And the object is for you to pay attention and follow along and try to guess which cup the Hershey's Kiss is under at the end. Try to guess if it's in the left cup, the middle cup, or the right. Let's check the left cup. The middle cup. If you guess the middle cup, you got it right. So now we're going to make it a little more complicated. I've added an extra pair of hands and I've added additional colors here. But that's only to distract you from the pink cups. The pink cups will always have, one of the pink cups will always have the Hershey Kiss underneath. So let's get started. So can you guess where the Hershey Kiss is?
I love that adding when the complexity gets added to and you're paying attention to a certain thing, maybe you miss everything. I think it was really interesting to see how much when we focus on something, we might miss other things. This was something that this was something that was brought to my attention by another NBC trainer named Roxy Manning. Really appreciate her bringing in that often we have this idea and in this culture of that there's a pure observation and that we can also get hooked by that really strong, extreme example that there's a pure observation. And it really depends on where the camera has its attention. It's very easy to miss things. And in that way, we can really understand and hold other people's perspectives, knowing that even observations might trick us. And also that internal observations are just as important as external. So when you're practicing nonviolent communication, it can be really helpful to understand your own experiences in your body, the thoughts that you have, and not get too focused and brought down sort of the rabbit hole of external observations. So I think that that's helpful. And let me know what you think about that and some different thoughts that come up. I know when we're working with, if there's an impact and you're getting feedback that there's an impact, it can be very difficult not to hear that as that you've done something wrong and get stuck on, oh, your observations must be right, or oh, that's not what I intended. And being able to understand that what we evaluate and the meaning we make of it is very different than what actually happened, and someone's experience can be different than yours. We can see things differently. That happens all the time, that there is bias in observation. So I really appreciate that systemic view. Well, I hope you've got some practices from today and a little bit of insight I'll be doing more videos, and I'm going to be doing one on the self-empathy process, which is a great place to start to practice some of these skills. And that will be coming up, so look for that. You can also do all kinds of translations. You can do it in hindsight. You can look back on your days. You can you can practice in the moment by in your head translating evaluations, and always understanding that there's needs underneath there, and to see what that's like for you. Explore it, see if it fits, put it in your own framework. And some of Byron Katie's work is really helpful, looking at, is it true? Are you 100% sure those thoughts are correct? Can you absolutely know it's true? What happens when you believe that thought, and what would you be without that thought? Those are some things to do with thoughts. You can make columns for judgments, feelings, and needs, and do some translation that way. Thanks so much for being with me today. I really hope that this contributes to your life and how it supports your own awareness, increase awareness of others, helps us hear other people's experiences, helps to bring in a lot more compassion and find some life-serving ways for as many needs to be met as possible, and to remind us how our fate is intertwined with each other. And that's what we need to know now. Even when we're stopping impact or stopping harm, we can still have some type of connection and also try to hear each other's experiences. Even if we can't do it in the moment, be able to come back within ourselves and see each other's humanity, see our own humanity. That's my hope. See you again.